So my guests today certainly don't need any introduction, especially for my audience, but I'm going to do it anyway. We have both of the co-founders of Hedera. We have both of the co-CEOs of Swirlds Labs, Mance Harmon and Leemon Baird. Gentlemen, welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here with you.
It's good to see you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to dive right into the questions here. Mance, we've come a long way in the past 2 years in the Hedera space in terms of infrastructure, tooling, marketplaces, games, payments, DeFi, you pretty much name it. What are your thoughts on the Hedera ecosystem as a whole?
Well, look, you're exactly right. I mean, I think that when we stop to take stock of where we are relative to where we were even 18 months ago, the difference is profound. I think that at this stage, we have the table stakes in place, meaning that all of what's most important exists for building, the creators and the developers to build what's needed on the network. Clearly, there's more work that can be done and will be done and needs to be done. There's always room for growth. That's certainly true for us as well. But what I would say is that the ecosystem is well-rounded and is being fleshed out in a sort of methodical, thoughtful way, and that's being recognized. It's being recognized by the community. It's being recognized by the analysts. Everything is moving in the exact right direction. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's all in the right direction, and I'm very pleased with where we are today. We're primed for growth when the next bull market arrives, I think is a good way to think about it.
And we have to give some credit to some of the accelerators or the teams out there like the HBAR Foundation, the Swiss Hashgraph Association, and now the DLT Science Foundation. They've really done a good job.
Absolutely. They're instrumental, right? So when I think about the ecosystem growth, it's by and large their efforts that I appreciate and we're seeing the results from. There are a few things, of course, that are happening outside of those organizations, but they're the ones that have the role of really seeding the ecosystem and helping us plug the holes where we see them, and they're doing a great job.
Absolutely. So, Leemon, I'm going to start with a general question for you as well, but in terms of network development, how do you feel about the Hedera network, its services, and its performance this year?
Oh, this is so great. I am just really, really happy. It's not us, it's this team that is amazing in this community. We just passed 14 billion transactions processed, which is mind-boggling to me. We're staying often over 1,000 a second. I think right now it's at 687 per second. It's just mind-boggling how fast this is happening. We continue to add council members and new nodes. We continue to add features, and this community keeps building such cool things on top of it. It's just immensely exciting.
Yeah, it's been a blast. So, Mance, it really has been an amazing ride over the past 5 years. What are you most proud of, and what would you have changed over this first half decade?
Well, that's interesting. So, there are a lot of things to be proud of. But immediately what comes to mind are really 2 things. One is the community. I mean, when you start a project like this, you never know if you can build a community at all, number one. And then if you can you maintain sort of a healthy environment in the community for the long term? And our community stands out in that way. I mean, I'm always reading about comments where new community members are attracted and drawn to our community because of the lack of rancor, perhaps, that you might see in some of the other communities. And it's just the community has a maturity about it, a staidness that I think reflects the project. It reflects mine and Leemon's values. It reflects what we brought to the project as a whole. So the community is a big one. It's a fantastic community. I'm very proud that we have those that are with us and have been with us from the beginning, and those that are joining us. And then secondly, I would point to the council. I mean, look, when we started all this, the thought of creating something like the council was daunting. Most people told us it was impossible. And so we just didn't know if we could do it. And we've been able to do it, but more than just create the council it's creating something that is functional in the way that we had envisioned it, right? We had it's not our last council, well, our last face-to-face council meeting was in California and in the Google offices, right? They hosted this time around. And big auditorium, and I was able to participate in that. But what's noteworthy is that I didn't really participate in that, right? I was there, but I was pretty much an observer because the council members, there must have been more than 100 total people in attendance, right? It was a large group of people, and the council members over the course of several days, both in formal council meetings as well as the committee meetings, they're governing. They're doing what we hoped that they would do. And as a result, there's very little for me to do. And that's success, right? I count that as a form of success. So I'm proud of the council. Also, just a quick note about this. I don't think that it would have been possible to create the council had we not taken the steps that we had from a legal and regulatory perspective. So the work that was done early on with my general counsel, Natalie Furman, and I, of course, was deeply involved in a lot of that. I'm proud of that, right? I'm proud that we took the road less traveled, perhaps, than a lot. And it was required to create the council that we now have today. And I think we're receiving the dividends of all of that work and perseverance and dedication to not straying from that path. There are a lot of good reasons not to go the way we went, right? There are much easier paths to take. And, but we were steadfast in our approach. And now I think that the project's being validated because of that.
I do want to get more into the council in a little bit, but just my second part of the question, I threw two at you there, so that's not really fair. But would there be anything that you would tweak or do differently over the past 5 years, looking back?
Tactically, I'm sure there are a lot of things that at a tactical level we would reconsider if we were presented with them again today, given the knowledge that we have today. But in terms of strategy, no. The white paper that we wrote is the white paper and published back, was it 2017 or early 18? I forget when. But at the very beginning, the white paper that we published is still the roadmap that we're pursuing. And I don't think we got it wrong in that white paper, right? There are no major points that I would go back and change. Again, when we started, we knew that the features of this project were very unique and not appreciated in all cases in that early ecosystem, in that early cryptosphere that we existed in back in 2017. Right? It was a very different world back then. But we thought and believed that as the ecosystem matured as a whole, crypto ecosystem matured as a whole, that the features that we were building into the project from the beginning would become increasingly important and prominent. And it's playing out exactly that way, right? I think that we've been able to achieve the goals, many of the goals. There's more to do. If you look at the white paper, there's still a few things left to do that we set out to do from the very beginning. So there's still work to do. But hey, we've accomplished a lot of milestones. And I think we got it right in the beginning. And so no major strategy shifts. Tactically, I'm sure that, given perfect knowledge or the benefit of hindsight, I'm sure that when presented with, any specific circumstance, we'd reconsider it. So yes.
That makes perfect sense. And I know in the beginning you see the potential and you think everything's going to happen right away, but it takes a long time to get all those things we talked about, the infrastructure and everything like that in place. And once that's in place, that's when things really start to get exciting. And that's what we're seeing now. All that stuff is in place. So I think the next 5 years are going to be really impressive. So Leemon, I'm going to go to you next. We've heard a lot about DREC lately. Can you tell us why you decided to focus on decentralized recovery lately?
Oh, yeah. So we care about Hedera. We are building the Hedera network. We want it to be the best possible thing. then broader than that, we care about the Hedera community, and we want to enable other people to be building on top of it. And we're very excited about all the different kinds of community members building all kinds of things on top of it. But we are also interested in the even broader thing of the blockchain DLT community. And we want to aid it and do anything we can to make this as a whole take its rightful place of being part of every part of society, every part of the economy, every part of education. Everything we do will have ledgers, DLTs, blockchains as part of it. And we really want to make sure that happens as fast as possible too. And so part of what we are looking at is what is the thing this industry as a whole needs the most. And maybe you would say regulatory clarity. And I agree. Maybe we had some good news yesterday. We're all really happy about that. There's much rejoicing, which is great. But I don't have a whole lot of control over that. You know, I don't control those things. But what we also see as a real impediment to DLTs going from the enthusiasts, the experts, the degens, the people who are really into it, we need to expand to the other 99% of humanity on this planet. And the key to that, I think one of the big things is it's got to be incredibly easy to use, maybe even invisible. It's built into your other apps. You don't even know about it, which means it needs to have the safety net that every part of your life has. If you lose the password to your bank account, you will eventually be able to get in. You can go to the bank in person. You can go to the courts and recover it. There's always a safety net. If you lose the key to your house, you can get a locksmith to come, or you can put a brick through the window. There is always a safety net in every area of your life. And if you lose your crypto keys, you've lost everything. No safety net. Okay, this is maybe okay for the enthusiasts, although you still hear horror stories of people losing vast amounts of money. But it is not okay for the typical person who doesn't even know what this stuff is. And when they hear about crypto, they think it's like a bank account. And of course, there's going to be a safety net. Everything in my life has a safety net. How could there not be? We as an industry have to build the safety net. And so that's what DREC is. It's you find helpers that are willing to help you. Your computer or your device is asking them every day, invisibly behind the scenes, are you still helping me? And then when you lose your device, any half of them can come together and help you. And it should also be built into even industrial grade things where the helpers come sort of automatically. There's just a lot going on. So we are talking to a lot of different players in the Hedera community, but we are also talking to other blockchains, other DLTs. We are talking to lots of DLTs right now because this is something the industry as a whole needs to work on. And it's not multi-sig on the ledger where you reveal how many people are helping you. It's all private, and it's all, they just go and help you. And you're checking them every day, and you have automatic recovery. And when you add a new person, it automatically changes what everyone else is holding, all of that stuff. And we are working with anyone. And although we're talking to a lot of other ledgers right now, if anyone listening to this would also like to come help, come talk to us. We are trying to put together an alliance of as many people as possible because it helps the industry. And of course, if it helps the industry, it also helps the Hedera ecosystem because we're part of this industry. But that's why we got into this. Because we care about the industry as a whole, and we care about the world as a whole. It needs DLTs. The world really needs what we have. And we as an industry have the solution to a real problem. We just have to make it possible for people to use it.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things, the argument of having custodians and exchanges and things like that is you could always recover it. Well, we saw all the issues that can come from that. But now that we have the potential for having this safety net, you can have, the trust of being able to maintain your own keys, but also have the ability to recover it if necessary in a decentralized way.
You're right. You can always have your safety net by using centralization. Give it all to somebody you trust, like FTX, right? You trust them. Okay, maybe that doesn't work so well. We need to be decentralized in our trust as well.
Sure, absolutely. And this could actually be used for things beyond storing your crypto and things like that, right?
Absolutely. This has nothing to do with being specific to keys or being specific to accounts or being specific to crypto. This is about any secrets. So you can store your passwords this way. You can store the combination to your safe this way. Anything that you have, your grandmother's recipe that you really care about, anything that you have that is a secret that you don't want to lose, you can make sure that no one steals it and that you don't lose it. Or at least you can make it hard for those to happen. You can have a safety net. And so it's not just about crypto. It's not just about cryptographic keys. It's about everything.
And that's what we need to do. We need to show that this industry can bring things that add value to everything throughout our society. All right, so Mance, I'm going to go to you next. Can you talk about what specific use cases or industry verticals you're most excited about that are already in production? And then maybe tell us about some things that are in the works that you think have the most potential in impacting the market.
Well, look, tokenization is a macro theme, right? It's a macro theme for the entire industry. And what I see and am excited about is that the tokenization platforms are becoming more mature. There's an awful lot of them, right? It's a very crowded space. It's a hot space. Everybody's competing for that space. And I think what's going to end up happening, and we're beginning to see this, is that value gets built on top. So maybe the tokenization platforms themselves become commoditized and become a component of a much larger solution that gets embedded into various solution sets, that sort of thing. But we're seeing an increase in the number of tokenization projects. And what I expect and hope is that large amounts of value will be tokenized on Hedera, right? That's what's exciting about it. I think we're on the edge, the cusp of real world token assets going mainstream, right? There are funds that are now being tokenized. I'm anticipating that sort of thing is going to happen on Hedera at an increasing pace. And that's just a huge market, and it's going to come like a tidal wave, right? I think it's going to come like a tidal wave and quickly. So that I'm very excited about. It may not necessarily drive a lot of TPS. That remains to be seen. Depends on what the tokenization project is.
You have to think about it in terms of, we have high frequency trading and the potential that could come from that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so it depends on the assets that are being tokenized and what markets they're participating in, right? So yes, to your point, that I'm sure that when we say tokenization, that is so broad that it includes any asset of any value, right? So yes, I'm sure there will be. But when I think about, well, I'll just leave it at that. Either way, it's all goodness. And even if there are assets that are being tokenized and the buyers are holding those tokens, there's not a lot of churn, in other words, in the holding of the assets. It's still a great thing to have many, many billions of dollars of value depending on Hedera, right? Depending on the platform and using that network. So I see that coming, and that's exciting. It shouldn't be any surprise that I think ESG is going to be a really big deal for Hedera. We're already considered sort of the go-to layer one for ESG applications. A lot of that results from the Guardian and the work that's being done on the Guardian and by the whole ESG ecosystem around the Guardian. I think that the Guardian is going to continue to mature, not just as a piece of technology that is both open source and also being hosted by one of our community members, but as an ecosystem. That ecosystem is going to continue to mature. And I'm anticipating further tighter integrations with the larger ESG ecosystem and the standards bodies and all of that. So I think that Wes over at the foundation is doing a fantastic job there. He is really leading the charge in this. I'm very excited about that. And then I also think that there will be retail-focused use cases for, again, sort of going back to tokenization, but I'm thinking NFTs in this case, retail-focused NFTs and marketplaces and other platforms that support that type of ecosystem that will begin to help build out that part of the Hedera ecosystem. So, when those come online, I'm very anxious to see how all of that plays out, and that I'm looking forward to that as well. But look, there's so many different use cases, right? These are the ones that we have given some considerable focus to, but we're aware of all kinds of payment solutions and other things that are considering Hedera and being built on Hedera. again, this is not a forward-looking statement. I don't want to make any forward-looking statements, but the the ecosystem is thriving and the number of projects are increasing, and Hedera is a general purpose public network. One thing that is different about Hedera than perhaps some of the other networks is that we haven't focused on a single use case. We continue to build out support for the EVM and all the tools that are built up around the EVM, which makes it possible for the general developer to build an arbitrary application. And we see a lot of that. So while I've spoken about a few that I think we're excited about because we focus there just personally, internally, there's a lot going on to be excited about.
Well, Mance, you mentioned, retail NFTs, and that really dovetails really well into my next question, because this next one is really close to my heart, literally right now. So, Leemon, you had an in-person demonstration of Twigital yesterday. Can you tell us about that experience, and what do you think of our app?
That was fun. A cool app, too. So what this was is they take an object, and they digitize several of my objects. I have several things that people have given me as gifts that they've handmade, and we got to digitize them. And I took several objects that are related to research that I've done, and they were able to digitize those. I still haven't seen exactly how many of my 6 objects got digitized. It depends on how shiny it is and how small it is and other things. But what they do is they make a 3D model of it. So it's polygons with texture map, and they put it in a standard format. So this is the kind of thing that could go into a game. It can go into VR. It can go into AR. It can be just used as something you could buy and sell as a token, but you'd see what it is and have it rotating in front of you, that sort of thing. And then they tokenize it so they can mint an NFT for this thing. And they can include in that legal language about what it actually means. If I sell this NFT to someone, do they get the copyright? There are certain things they can do, things they can't do. Do they get the physical object along with the NFT? All of that stuff. And then you could use this online. So they're laying the foundation for a future where we spend a lot of our time in AR or VR. AR is when you can see the real world, but there's some things in it. So your object might populate, you go to a WeWork, but you get all your fun stuff from home automatically populated around you. You could have that, or you could have VR worlds where it's in these VR worlds. You could have games where it's actually objects in the game that do things. All of those things. And so then you can take your real world with you into the cyber world, and you can merge the two. And then you can also then, because they are NFTs, you can have marketplaces for them. You can buy and sell them, and you know what rights are going along with the thing. It's laying the foundation for a very interesting future, I think. They had a very slick app. You can use a turntable and fancy lighting to take the pictures of it, or you can just use your phone. You just wave your phone around the object, and now you have the object as an NFT. I thought that was really cool.
It was a blast to come up with. You were actually the inspiration. You've said several times in the past that everything of value will be tokenized. And my partner, Jesse, that just resonated in his head. And he's like, well, how can we do that? And he just set his mind to trying to figure out how we could do that. And now it's actually coming to fruition. So thank you for the opportunity for letting him come down and demonstrate that out. The next thing I want to touch on, Mance, we're going to go back to the Governing Council. When I was just a community member back in 2018, and we were wondering what the council would look like, often on Telegram, we would start just throwing out who our dream council members would be. And I remember some people would come in and hey guys, you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. Let's not expect too much. But, after years seeing this thing come to fruition, if anything, it's exceeded what we were expecting. So, Mance, can you just generally tell us how your original vision for the Hedera Governing Council compares to where we stand today?
Yeah, good question. So what I would say is this. I would say that it's taken us longer to get here than I anticipated. And at the same time, I didn't know if we could do it at all, right? When we started, it sounded like it was nearly impossible, but we thought we were going to give it a go. And for a lot of reasons, we were able to make it work. It has taken longer than we anticipated. But at this stage now, the council is mature in a fundamental way. And what I've noticed is that as the consequence of the decisions that are being made goes up by the council, participation also goes up, right? The more important the decision is, the more council members show up to participate in the conversation and the discussion. In other words, governance, as the project has matured and the decisions become increasingly important, the governance of the project has matured alongside of it. And now the council members are very active in ways that, we only hoped for, and not having ever done it, didn't exactly know what it would look like. We had envisioned certain ideas and principles by which we wanted to build it. And now those are, those were right. Those were good decisions in the beginning. So where do we stand today relative to where we started? And is it where I thought we'd be? Some parts were slower than in developing than I expected, but it's mature, healthy, functional, and largely what I kind of expected. And I continue to be surprised, right? I continue to be surprised. So again, I mentioned just earlier that we were in California for our last face-to-face council meeting. And that whole experience was truly surreal because we had the opportunity to take stock, look back at where we started, and now 5 years later, see what was actually happening with that collection of participants all together. You have giant companies like Dell and Google and Aberdeen and all, people from around the world sending experts in their industries together, all working together for the good and betterment of Hedera. And look, the fact that they're showing up and doing this is still just a miracle in my mind. And it's very satisfying. So I'm very happy with where we are. On the tech side, there are just a few things that we said in the white paper we still want to do and need to do. And that's also true in the council side, right? We're not yet at 39. We started with 39. So there are a few boxes left to check, but all the broad strokes are in place and mature in some real ways.
Yeah. And if I can add to that.
Absolutely.
I would have to say that at the very beginning, we set an overly ambitious goal for how good of council members we were going to have, and we've exceeded it. Yeah. It blows my mind. What we have right now on the council was beyond what we were hoping for 5 years ago. And I think 5 years ago, our expectations were crazy high, or our ambitions were crazy high. But we have just been able to get really top-notch council members, and I've just been amazed.
And just to add one more thing to that, as you and the community, as the community knows, Leemon and I left Hedera more than a year ago. Swirlds Labs spun out. We went with the spin out. And so we're not inside Hedera. The offices of CEO and CTO were dissolved. We didn't know that was a leap of faith, right? We didn't know back then whether or not the council members and the committees would step up to fill the void. But we knew that they had to. We knew that if we were leaving, then it was going to be really important for the committees, especially, to take on additional workload and carry that torch. And this is one of those areas that I really wondered about, right? Will the membership committee not relax the standards? Because it's easy. It is so easy to relax the standards. We were under immense pressure always, even from internal team members. Everybody has you come to the table with somebody you think is going to be a great council member. They got a good use case, whatever. But they don't quite meet the standard that we had set in the beginning. And we needed council members, right? We were desperate for council members to sign up. There was so much pressure to lower the bar or relax those standards, and we didn't do it. And now the membership committee hasn't either. In fact, the membership committee has rejected a lot of potential council members. It happens nearly every committee, right? There are ones that are proposed, and most of them get rejected. So it's moving in the direction of being self-sustaining in a way that I hoped that it would, without mine and Leemon's direct involvement, leading that charge, and it's working.
I love it. It's looking like a 100-year plus project. That's really the path we're on.
It really is. And one of the things, and Mance has said this in the past, and this is an impressive bar because, of course, the hash graph is an amazing technology. But Mance has said in the past that, the council is just as important to, or just as impressive as the tech, and it just as important for Hedera. So that's a big statement, but I believe it as well, that the Hedera hash graph, the technology behind it is head and shoulders above a lot of the other platforms out there. But the governance is, because there isn't any of that kind of governance out there, is that much more impressive.
Just one more note on this, because I just want to drive home that point. I talk to projects all the time in which they're trying to sell their solution into the market. And when they approach, large companies of any size that have important standards and compliance requirements, et cetera, on and on and on, all types of interests and concerns around the crypto industry at large, right? I mean, especially with what's happened with FTX and all that's happened in the past 18 months. When you approach a company of any size, and certainly the publicly traded companies, with an idea or a product that is built on top of DLT, they have this concern about the industry generally. And when those projects that are out there selling their products say, this is the project, look at Hedera, look at the council, look at who these members are that are Hedera and are providing the governance, that box is checked, right? Immediately. There's not even a further conversation, right? It's the power and the value of the council that makes it possible for these projects to sell into the big customers.
Absolutely. All right. So, Leemon, I'm going to go to you on this next one. And I received this question from a community member. They were actually directing it to Rob Allen because we do an AMA every week, and he does a really good job with it. But I knew I was going to be coming on with you, so I figured I'd throw it to you. He was wondering about the timeline for community nodes. Can you give us an update on this, and how important is this milestone to Hedera?
Yeah, very important. So I can't give specific timelines because there's always the balancing of different features and when they come out and dependencies and everything else. But it is a high priority. We are definitely working on all the pieces that need to happen for that. And I'm excited about it. We know that there's a lot of people in the community that really want to be part of this. And we want you to be part of it. And we want to grow it. Also, community members are on the path to permissionless nodes. We have to expand to community members, then we expand to permissionless nodes. And I'm excited about that as the ultimate goal. And so community nodes will be coming. I can't give you a date. I don't know a date, but we are working hard on making that happen. And then the plan is that eventually we would also work hard on making permissionless nodes happen. That whole sequence of the path to decentralization, we had a video about that a long time ago. This is what we're working on. And I think this is important. And I love the fact that people want to be running nodes. And I'm looking forward to the day when they will be doing so.
Absolutely. And it's important for network performance as well, from the standpoint of we are going to need to shard at some point, and having additional nodes is going to be necessary, right?
That's right. So we can only handle 10,000 per second right now. We could actually raise the throttles and go more, but eventually we'll go to a gazillion per second, and we will need shards. And so we consider sharding to be very important. And of course, shards only work if you have nodes to fill up those shards. And so community nodes and then permissionless is very important when we go to sharding.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so this last question is going to be the same for both of you. And it's going to be, where do you see Hedera in 5 years? So Mance, where do you see us 5 years down the line?
So 5 years from now, I think that, so obviously we'll have a full council. So full council, and probably in 5 years, the initial tranche of council members will have rotated off. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the first tranche of council members have rotated off, but I do expect that we'll be at full council participation. And then in addition to that, and importantly, I think I would expect that a majority of the council members, at least a majority of the council members, will have solutions deployed on the platform. So I think that the whole council aspect of the project, including those enterprise use cases, will have gone to market and be at maturity, and we'll see a financially sustainable platform executing, in perpetuity and focused entirely on growth at that stage.
And this amazing run up in network utilization this year will just look like a blip. I think you said that to Ryan Solomon, right?
When we look at maturity, this is a blip. This is a blip for sure. It's just one use case that is primarily responsible. A lot of track and trace and supply chain stuff going on there. It's interesting that, so just as a quick aside, when we think about sustainability of the platform, there's one use case that is driving a lot of TPS, but only about 70 or 75% of the revenue, right? So there's a lot of revenue as a percentage being driven by a lot of different use cases out there. While if we only focused on TPS, then, it's lopsided.
All transactions on Hedera are not created equal. We have all kinds of different, and they have different fees, right? That's so, right. Leemon, where do you think the Hedera network and the ecosystem, what will it look like in 2028?
Oh, I love this. 5 years in the future. So the council is running on all cylinders. They have 39 members. They're doing the turnovers where they vote for new members as people roll off. All of that is working. The network itself will have lots of new features. We keep rolling out new features. Imagine 5 years of rolling out features. So we will have all sorts of tools to make it easy to build on. We'll have an ecosystem that has built enormously all sorts of different things on it. We will have features to make it faster and more scalable. We will, I would assume, have sharding by then and enough TPS to be paying for the sharding. Enough TPS to actually need sharding, you would imagine. We would have the additional nodes. It wouldn't just be council members running nodes. We would have all of that. In addition to that, I think that you would see us being at the forefront of an industry that has now penetrated society, and that we are seeing in all areas of society. Maybe this transition to using ledgers isn't completely done in 5 years, but I think it will be firmly embedded in society 5 years from now. I think we'll have regulatory clarity. I think it will be understood by the typical business, how you use it in your business. It will be understood in the typical social platform, how this works for social media. It'll be understood in education, what the role of DLTs and ledgers are in education. And I think that what we'll see is that the average person will be able to use Hedera and other ledgers, but Hedera has a lot of things that will make it do very well in that world. We may even see it starting to be integrated into wallets, being integrated in things like iOS and Android and in desktop operating systems. It's going to become mainstream. And so 5 years from now, Hedera will have scaled to even things like sharding, which is ABFT sharding, because of the state proofs. Not just one shard is ABFT, but the group of them as a whole is ABFT. Yeah, that will be powerful. The state proofs will allow inter-ledger communication so that different ledgers can easily move tokens back and forth. Who knows if the world will have CBDCs by then, but if they do, they will interoperate easily. I cannot wait to see where we are 5 years from now. It's going to be a very interesting future, I think.
And you'll never lose your keys.
There you go.
You'll never lose your keys.
We have DREC. All right. So, gentlemen, it's a beautiful vision. You've always had a beautiful vision, Leemon. We appreciate it. My journey here is I've read the Hashgraph white paper in 2017. I became a Hedera ambassador in 2018. I became a content creator. And then I left a 20-year career to work full-time at the HBAR Foundation and to become a builder on the Hedera network. You've both been an inspiration all the way through. Thank you so much for swinging by today and giving us an update.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for all you've been doing for the community. And thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah, always enjoy it.